Good morning. Let's make sure everything is working. Sun is flashbanging me again. Let's see. Everything is okay. Twitch is complaining about... What is it complaining about? Bitrate? It's fine. Unstable, you're lying. I haven't dropped a single frame. Welcome to another day of twos. Hi, Allmind. Always good to see you. I woke up this morning, like happy and excited and ready to rock. And at some point between breakfast and now, I think because I had to talk about some financial stuff that wasn't great, my mood is kind of cratered. And yet, I must persist. I have a lot of stuff going on right now, but I feel the need to do this to here's the thing, every time I don't work on the game, I forget how the game works. And because what I have in my head is a pretty complex thing, and what I'm working on right now is merely like early prototype. It disappears very quickly. So I need to dedicate myself to working on this at least 2 mornings a week if I can afford to. I couldn't afford to last week. I had to do some other stuff. But see, that 1 week of not doing it and I'm already completely lost. So again, for the time being, this will be the structure of the stream, is that this first 1 to 3 hours will be trying to remember what it is that I did and what I'm trying to do, as I'm trying to get more and more of this game from my head into software, and slowly get it to a kind of playable prototype state where the basic mechanics of movement really is all I'm doing this year. The actual like game built around it is a 2027 thing. But just getting the movement right, getting the mechanics of movement right, and interaction, both in terms of like charting it out, which is probably still a big deal of what I'll be doing today, and actually programming it, which is, I want to say, the more difficult thing, but I'll be perfectly honest, trying to chart it out in a way that's very deliberate hasn't been easy, and it's taking its damn time. Like I've always had big respect for game designers, but it's only as I'm working on it myself in a very serious way that I heretofore have not. I respect it even more, especially those who do it on their own, and especially those who do it without any kind of like formal training or support structure. So the goal today is merely a recap. I want to be back on Thursday. Here's the thing: we're in the end of August. How did that happen? We're in the end of August, and my to-do list for what I wanted to have done in August is still quite large. And now the way that I've learned how to-do lists work, that doesn't necessarily mean that every item will take the same amount of time. Some of these items kind of cascade into each other, and doing one of them will make the rest easy, but it's still a lot to do. I'm not going to finish it all this week, so that's going to be delayed into September. What else is new? But as long as kind of my goal of like before December hits, you can walk around, the basic interaction works, and there's a basic map laid out, and there's a vehicle, I think I'll be okay. And for that, I still have like 3 whole months. September, October, November. That's doable. I love when game designers do very smart ones. I've recently beat Slitherhead, and that game legit has like 6 levels, and they're always being recontextualized both narratively and mechanically. That's a game, from what I've seen, that's a game that's a game built by people who are experts yet push themselves. And that's when you get a lot of the interesting stuff, is stuff that doesn't necessarily quite work always, but makes you go, hell yeah. This medium is not very old. This game medium, it's not very old. Even if you go all the way back to the 50s or whatever, to like shit played on oscilloscopes. But if you think about how long we've been making 3D games, it's been under 40 years. 3D games, mainstream 3D games, are younger than I am. And there's so much more to explore, because we're not done, as a species, we're not done designing board games and card games, you know. And that's why I kind of, it bothers me so much how games in particular are so tied to their industry, because just as an artistic medium, there is so much more to explore there that we haven't even come close to on a mechanical level, on an interactivity level, on an artistic, cultural, expressive level, and all of that gets kind of choked by shareholders, you know, which is the story of our times. It's true for all the other mediums as well, of course, but I feel like games in particular have never been able to kind of escape that boot. And nor will I be able to. But maybe I can contribute a little bit. So, the plan today is to just go over my to-do list again. Sorry, the office is a mess right now. My mom is coming to stay with us for a week in September, and turning this tiny little 3-meter by 3-meter room that 2 people work in into also a guest room is becoming a challenge. This is a fold-out IKEA bed that turns into a chair. It's blocking my drawers right now, and there's a lot of stuff that's kinda... My desk has been a mess even way before that, but that'll be cleaned up over time. The plan today, as far as plans go, and knowing that my mood is starting out isn't great, and so if that doesn't improve, will I go on for 3 hours? That's the kind of question, that I have to ask myself. The plan for today is just go over the to-do list and start refreshing, start talking. There is one particular thing design-wise that I haven't fully figured out yet. That would also be a challenge coding-wise, for me at least. And I'm going to try to figure it out. I had some good examples. I've played a few games that have given me thoughts too. I have some unsorted notes that might be worth discussing. We'll probably be spending a lot of time in the little flowchart thing that I've been building. I have found that to be quite a useful resource in solidifying how I want things to work without actually having to code them. And it could very well be that the final code will be based upon that a lot more than whatever kind of I have patched together now. I particularly want to still work on the interaction system and kind of try to re-understand that a little bit better, because I have a basic system that I took from some YouTube tutorials. I might want to re-watch some of those tutorials a little bit to kind of refresh, because it's been a few months since I built that, or copied that and adapted it. Like last streams, we kind of simplified some of the stuff, and I think there's still some like old code named things that are following the old system that I had, like hand interaction and body interaction, whatever. So I want to kind of revisit that and take a look at that, and then fall asleep while I do so. And I hope this afternoon I can make enough money to pay my bills. Alright, let's go look at the to-do list. Character controller, that's our big thing that we're working on. Oh, 1 second. Still need to change something. It's a week without streaming, and I lose my entire setup. Okay. So, the interaction components are still called hand interaction. It's probably a good idea to go over everything and remove any reference to hand or body interact, and get some less stressful music going. No, that's still stressful, Sonic. I'm sorry. I should make separate components for fixtures and items, so I need to just... I got this system from a YouTuber called Stay at Home Dev, who had this series about making a first-person shooter in Godot, and had a really neat system for how to do interactivity that kind of worked for me. And I need to extend that to include other things. I need to actually build the item picking up thing, because the interactions I have working right now. Right, you click on a light switch and the light switch, it sends a signal and it does a thing. You click on a door and it does a thing. I need to remember how that actually connects and how the signals actually work, but we'll do that too. The place item mode is what I need to design. I have some ideas for that. We're not going to do things in this order, by the way. And then there was the use the item on fixture, which I feel is like important, and yet I'm having trouble coming up with some simple examples. Like, okay, a great example would be actually, let's say you had to replace a car tire. Now, that's a little bit more... See, that's a complex example, because that's a whole intricate system of its own, because that requires taking the bolts out and shit. But say you put the battery in the car. You replace the battery. I don't know. Something like that. I need items that can be used. That's the whole thing. And then a very important thing is sitting. And sitting involves... from what I remember, disabling certain things, like the hitbox and I don't know what else. Sorry, I need to go musicless for a bit. This is still stressful. Victory Road. That's okay. And then actually moving the body, disabling controls, that kind of shit. And I need to continue designing the basic underarm inventory and make that, and I need at least one generic pocket item, and that is like the easy thing, because that is literally just like press a key and an item appears, and it's just about also disabling what needs to be disabled in terms of your movement. Can you run while holding a phone? I don't know. Let's take a quick look at the unsorted notes. So I have been playing this weekend. I have been playing a lot of American Truck Simulator. I needed something chill to play on the couch. Oh, this sun, it's so bright. Hold on, no, I can't do this. There we go. That's much better. I needed something chill to play on the couch, and I had the realization. I had this amazing realization that made me feel stupid for not having had it before, which is that I had when kind of laying out the map of the island, I had in my head this concept of the, what did I call it? Node something system. I don't remember what I called it. It had a name. The zone network system. Basically based a lot off of the map as used in Vin Diesel Wheelman, in which, as you can kind of see, you have this whole area of what is supposed to be Barcelona, but the actual traversable roads are more like a network of highways with certain areas of detail. And a lot of the roads are closed off. And I should probably take a look at how it do that. How do Vin Diesel Wheelman close off roads visually? Because the thing is, which games did I play? Did I mention American Truck Simulator? That's what I was playing. American Truck Simulator. American Truck Simulator, if we take a look at the map, American Truck Sim map, Map Genie. Damn, they have a lot of like I don't have most of this. I have like Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Utah, and Arizona, and New Mexico. I don't have all the rest of this stuff. But let's just zoom in on Texas, right? It's very highway based, right? but then you zoom in and you have all these little, you know, sometimes it's a city, sometimes it's a loading area, a port of some kind or whatever. But you know, it's not. There's like here. Let's go to like I think this is Los Angeles. I'm not sure. I think I remember this was the port. But when you're driving down those highways, especially if they're not like, if they're just roads on the ground, there are a lot of side roads that traffic can go into, but you can't. Which suggests a bigger world, but just says, hey, these roads aren't for you. Right? And the way the game does that is by just having these big yellow X's on the road crossing. You know, so you try to turn right into this blocked off street, it'll just be a wall. And part of me wants to not necessarily do that. Because it's I want things to be as diegetic as possible, but I don't know any other way. You know, I don't know any other way really, because every other way is you put diegetic barriers, but that to me blocks off too much. I want other traffic to be able to go, so I might have to go somewhere in that route of taking these side roads and saying, yeah, sorry gamer, this ain't for you, you're just not going there. But if you're sitting on a high vantage point and you're looking across the entire island, you will still be able to see where that road goes. So there is a full road network that I would build, and there is a player accessible road network that I would build. And especially since the idea is to build out the island piece by piece and landmark by landmark. And that's kind of just, it's just kind of like, it's a compromise, I suppose. But it might be a compromise that I can't think of anything else. Like, I don't think I'd put up big yellow X's. I'd maybe make the wall a little bit more, not necessarily subtle, but not as aggressive. But I think I'd have to do that. And then there's the possibility of saying, like, hey, in the future, maybe this road will be accessible. But there will be, you know, dozens of roads that will never be accessible, but should still exist on the map. I kind of wanna know if there's like a no clip. Is there a satellite version of the map? No, but no trespassing. No trespassing doesn't make sense, right? Because these are public roads. These are just roads that lead to places that I don't want to build. Or can't build, don't have the resources to build. So it needs to not be diegetic. There are some roads where I could do that, but not all of them. It's exactly like, and that's kind of my big learning from ATS. It's exactly like ATS. You just need to communicate which roads are player roads and which are not. You know, I don't have the resources to build a full open world at the scale that I want. And I don't think a narrative reason would work, because their whole huge, like, the busiest sections are the ones I want to avoid, because those are the ones that are the most difficult to build. So I think just a you know, remember when virtual reality was a thing? When virtual reality was a thing, there was this thing of like, how do the virtual reality goggles communicate that you're entering a wall or you're exiting what it has determined as a playable space? And I've seen people play stuff, and then if they're kind of like leaving the safe space, a little grid wall kind of fades in, you know, and says like, hey, not for you. Something along those lines, something gentle, but it'll still be a wall. That's the idea. The other thing I took away from ATS is the ideas of scale. Now, ATS is 1/20th scale, I believe. But of course, America is a gargantuan. And especially those early states that they started with, California and Nevada and Arizona, those are places that have a lot of emptiness in between the urban areas. So you can't, you know, if you do that at 1/10 the scale, you are making for very long trips. I have it right now that the island is at 1/3 the scale. I think that's okay. We'll see if that works out when I build it. Of course, Aruba is not California. I think Aruba is like. Wait, I can do this. Map true countries true size. There's like a website for this. Here, the true size of. Go Aruba. We start dragging it to Los Angeles. Or Manhattan. Let's go Manhattan. Everyone's familiar with Manhattan. Even the Manhattan in the Spider-Man games isn't full scale, right? Yeah. So Aruba's quite a lot larger than Manhattan. So even at 1/3 the size, 1/3 the size would be this. It'd still be like the size of Manhattan. Ooh. Just wondering if it's still too big, but how I've scaled things up, I think that's how I need to do it. Yeah. Because I wanted it to take a certain amount of time to drive anywhere. But anyway, that's what I've learned from American Truck Simulator. Now, the one thing that American Truck Simulator has that I will not have, that also tells the player what is a drivable road, is the GPS. You know, when you're playing a truck sim like that, you always have your GPS open on the side, sometimes multiple windows. And the GPS only shows drivable roads. It does not show the roads that are decorative. But I won't have that because the game will take place in 2005, and your car will be a shitty old Suzuki Samurai. So those are things I'll have to play with. What's the other thing? The other thing I got from American Truck Simulator is, yeah, that idea of scale. And also, like, it has some really nice, there's some nice sections in, kind of when you're going from California towards New Mexico, where you have these desert areas, and you know, the landscape is very different from Aruba, but there's some similarity there, and it made me think, like, okay, this is kind of what it would look like and feel like to drive. The one thing I want is the developers have been teasing this road trip module expansion for, like, feels like decades now, where you can just drive a car. And I want that, because, you know, when you're sitting on a truck, you're sitting very high, and your speed and acceleration is very truck-like. You know, I'm hauling like some 80,000-pound excavator or something like that. I want to sit in a little car and drive down those roads and experience this scale like that, because that feeling is what I will be trying to capture. GPS didn't get big until like 3 years later. Yeah, and I just game design wise, I don't want GPS. I want the player to have to explore the map. Someone in the Discord mentioned Forza Horizon 4 specifically. That's the one that takes place in the UK, I believe. I did play that many years ago when I had Game Pass. I can't play it now because of the boycott, but that also might be a map I could look at in terms of like how to scale things down. And again, this is all very preliminary because the first release of the game will only have that one big road between the natural bridge and that first settlement. But if I want to start building it out properly, I need to have an understanding of the scale beforehand. What else? There was one other thing. Okay, so if you are familiar with the games Landlord Super and what's the other one called? Where you're driving from Berlin to Istanbul. Jalopy. That developer is making a new game called Honcho, set in Japan. I don't know how old this trailer is, if this has what I need. That also kind of does these similar things. And particularly the no, let me just make this smaller so you can actually see the whole trailer. Particularly the way you place items in the world was something that made me go like, aha, this might be the way to do it. And I don't know if this trailer shows it. Yeah, you can kind of see, right? Okay, so the player is holding something in their hands. They're holding a two-handed item. And I had this thought too, like, yeah, a tasteful hologram. And by tasteful, I mean because I was playing Monbazoo, and in Monbazoo, it's just like a big, glowing blue-white version of what you're holding. I just mean something that's a little bit more little less distracting. So what I had in mind was, the item is floating in front of you, and you can potentially rotate it either manually or just by moving the character controller, and then you can place it. That's one way of doing it. But the way Honcho does it is it projects out a hologram version to whatever the first kind of intersecting surface is, and it places the hologram of the item onto that surface. And from there, you can rotate it. I believe you can rotate it in 90-degree increments also. You would not have to rotate it on this axis, whichever axis that is in Godot, I don't know. But maybe, rotate it like this and like this. I don't know. But again, this is another one of those games. Well, what I like about these Minsk Works games is they are not masculine and juvenile in the same way that My Summer Car-like games tend to be. But there is still, at least with this and Jalopy, there is still a heavy focus on the vehicle in a way that I'm also not particularly interested in, for my game at least. I also don't personally don't care for they did this too with Landlord Super, where your hands are always sticking out. I get why, but it takes me out of it. It's a design decision. Yeah, I might have to play the demo for this. The only other thing about Honcho, that, as far as I know, is it's procedurally generated. So it's not one real town or place or whatever. Which I generally don't like, because I enjoy the idea of creating a real sense of place, a feeling that this is um um a real place that is being recreated. But I don't know, maybe the procedural generation is good, and maybe what needs to be done anyway, and it feels like a unique place. I'm sure they're capable. They're much better developers than I am. So let's continue on down. I had realized I have this folder with reference pics. This is the actual road to the natural bridge. This is the actual road that I'll be making 1-to-1-ish. There's asphalt parts, there's dirt parts. You see why I feel like I need to have the sea be nice and rough, and starting with that shader that I got so long ago. And the hills are all barren, and there's so much detail in the rock, and I want to get like this. I want to get this real detailed. This is the sign. I don't know. I don't think that sign was there. There was always a sign here, but I don't think that sign was there necessarily 20 years ago. And it's just like the parking lot too, and hillsides too, and I want to recreate this in as much accurate detail as possible. This is the steps down to the natural bridge. This is what's left of it. Here you have these black basalt rocks next to all the limestone and the coral and whatever, the fossils. You have all these different colors. Obviously this view would be the bridge still standing. Like, I think this fence work is exactly the same as what it was 20 years ago. There's a lot of like old infrastructure that I want to recreate. This is the smaller bridge next to it, and yeah, you see you have the beautiful like pale blue sky, mostly cloudless, and then this dark, roiling, wild sea that's constantly pushing into the land. Very little plant life. This is the tourist shop, the gift shop / snack bar as it is now. This is not what it'll look like in game at all. And this is behind. Yeah, just look at that. Just look at that. I need to be able to capture this. No matter what style I pick, I need to be able to capture this feeling of like, if I jump into this water, every single bone in my body will be broken within 20 seconds because I'll be smashed up against these jagged rocks. And of course, if you do jump into the water in the game, nothing good will happen. Probably you will die, aka respawn, or whatever that means. Again, here again, little details. Little puddles of water that dry up and become like these tiny little pans of salt. This is what it looked like before collapse. September 2nd, 2005 is when it happened. Literally a month and a day after I left. And then this is just geography and stuff in the road. But that's what I'll need to capture. Is there anything else here? Poncho. I got some. Right. There's another thing that I got from playing GTA GTA San Andreas, which is very famously when the remasters of the original GTA trilogy came out. Not the original GTA trilogy, the GTA 3 trilogy? Is that what it would be called? The at least in San Andreas, the map had no fog. And because of that, you could see from one end of the map to the other with enough elevation if you're in a plane or on the mountain or whatever. And it looked like shit. And it looked like you could see how small the map really was. Whereas in the original game, you know, obviously for performance reasons, but also for stylistic reasons, there was a very haze of fog that made sure that no matter where you were, you could never see the entirety of the map. And in reality, Aruba doesn't really have that. But I will need to have something like that anyway, some kind of haze, some kind of stylistic haze. I mean, that does exist in reality, but of course in reality also the island will be 3 times larger than what it'll be for me. So you should be, if you're standing on a high enough place, you should be able to see the entirety of the island. But it should also kind of start to fade out a little bit. So that's something that affects your... Like, there's scale and there's perception of scale. And there's all these things that are affecting your perception of scale from... like, I'm playing San Andreas very modded. And one of the mods adds a ton of clutter, a ton of items onto the streets. Boxes and trash and extra plants and all this little geometric detail. And I think that geometric detail also helps a lot with creating a sense of scale, because that's the one thing that American Truck Sim doesn't have, is you don't leave the truck, right? So you see everything from a certain perspective, a certain distance, and at a certain speed. But for me, you're walking around. You're walking around in first person. So I need to have the scale work in the totality of the island, in like how the landmarks are positioned and how the geography looks and the general shape, color, and texture of everything, but also down to small details. And I learned some of that also from Miasmata. Miasmata had, for a game from 2007, a remarkable amount of on-the-ground detail. That for a game developed by 2 people, it was quite impressive. And I think I need to do that a little too. I have a lot of on-the-ground detail. When we were looking at these pictures just now, you know, you have the detail in these rocks, in these stones. You have a little bit of grass here. You have different sized rocks that have different colors and different textures. And even further down the road, or up the road rather, here too, like these hills, there's nothing here, and yet little patch of rocks, some brush, some different colored rocks, you know, that's something I'll need to capture. There'll probably be a sound element to it as well. I think that is it in terms of like old notes. We're gonna now look at our interaction again. I'm just gonna go run through all of this again and add what I need to add, because there is the item thing that I think I want to do the honcho way. The honcho way is what I'll describe after I come back from a little bathroom break. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, this is... Yeah. Okay, so... This ever-expanding, infinite chart of stuff. So let's just start from the top left and work our way down. A fixture is an environmental interactive thing. Could potentially not be tied down, but usable without picking up first. I don't know what that means. Let's just delete that. An item is a thing you can pick up with hand, might be usable. We have our movement states, we have our normal state, we have our run state, we have our crouch state, we have sit, and we have sit in car. Sit in car is different because there might be different abilities and necessities depending on how the car works. It might change the control situation compared to sitting on anything else. This is our inputs. We have move, we have look, we have run, we have jump, we have crouch, we have zoom. Yeah. Then we have an interact key. And we have a use item key. And use item might be just a use key. Interact and use. That makes sense? I don't know. It's being worked out as we speak. You have a pause key. You have your pocket item keys, which on a keyboard would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and on a controller would be the D-pad. And you have a key to put them away, and then we'll get to it eventually. But we have vehicle controls. Then interaction, the big thing, really. This pocket items is pretty much worked out. Pocket item means if you use that key, you get the thing you want. You get the thing you want. You press 1, you get the phone in look mode, and you press use on it, and it becomes use mode, and then you can put it away. Does put away need to be a separate key? If hands are free, press pocket item key to bring up item. Press back, select tab, put away item. Press use key to go to use mode of item if applicable. While in look mode, using other pocket item key will switch between items. This is okay. Sorry, sidetrack, but that's how it happens on this stream. God, this sun is annoying. If we okay, you're walking around and you want to see what time it is. You hit you hit the watch key. Hey, these colors are wrong. You hit to take out the watch key. Is there a gameplay reason for having it be a separate key to put away? There is one good reason for potentially, like, what if the player doesn't know which key he just pressed to bring up which item? That would only be very early in the game, because after a while it'll be pretty clear. You take out your phone. Yeah, use item just becomes use. Why was I so obsessed with a put away key? Take the phone out. You hit the phone key. You take the phone out. You hit the use key. You get in. Use. This is a multimeter. You hit the use key. You hit the use key. It's in use mode. I think this is why I have a put away button. I think I figured it out. Because if I now hit the phone key again, the expectation might be that it now goes back to look mode. But I see no real reason to have a return to look mode. So like you use the phone key, phone comes up. If you hit the phone key again, nothing happens. You hit the phone key again, put the phone away. See, oh, that's why I put away there might be an expectation. See, these are the intricacies. These are the intricacies. This is why you need to be an obsessive freak. Think about these kinds of things. You hit the phone key. Two things could happen if you hit the phone key again. Either you put the phone away, or you go into use mode. A Krillionaire, the one and only. Two things can happen. Two things can happen if you hit the phone key again, potentially, right? Either you go into use mode, or you put the phone away. So that's an ambiguity. Instead of that, what I say is, if you have the phone in your hand, and you hit the phone key again, nothing happens. If you now hit like the watch key, put the phone away and you raise the watch, that's fine. But if you want to use it, you hit the use key, and that creates a synergy between the pocket items and the usable items, and I think that's what I want to create too. Use the use key to go to the use mode of the item. That creates a synergy. Yeah, let me just write that down. This creates synergy between pocket items and usable items. Now, a usable item, to get rid of that, you would drop it or put it in your inventory. But this is a pocket item, so you have a put away key and a use key, which is the same use key as always, because that removes ambiguity. Let me just add a card here. Notes. Write this down for the next time that I've completely forgotten everything. having the use key and a separate put away key removes ambiguity for the player, i.e. what does pressing the pocket item key do if that item is already deployed, and having the use key need to be capitalized for my own sake. The use key go into use mode, creates synergy with regular usable items. Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me now. Can I color text? I don't think so. Okay. So that's pocket items sorted out again. Again, the wallet doesn't... The wallet automatically becomes usable, but that's its own thing. What am I making? Okay, here we go. This is my attempt at the pitch. There is an island at the bottom end of the Caribbean. It goes by the name of Aruba. I grew up there, spent much of my youth there. There is a tourist natural monument called the Natural Bridge. It collapsed. There is a snack bar / gift shop, souvenir shop nearby. And there is a road from here that goes along the water all the way to here. What if you lived here? You were like 18 years old. What if you lived here somewhere and you worked here, and every morning you had to make this drive, and every evening you had to make the drive back, and that was your life? And what if I recreated the entire island in a smaller scale, but you could visit other places, like this big central hill with a staircase on it that you could climb, like the natural park, like caves that are there to explore, like this lighthouse that stands all the way. Where is it? There it is. It's not in 3D. This lighthouse stands all the way at the other end of the island. What if the entire island, scaled down and simplified, was playable, and you had hunger and thirst and needed to make money, and people wanted to have you do stuff for them, social connections? What if the work that you do could make you more money, but at the cost of the environment, potentially leading to the collapse of the bridge? What I'm making is a first-person immersive life / job simulator set on the island in 2005, before the natural bridge collapsed. Both a love letter to the place and time, and a kind of personal, psychological, emotional therapy for me as I'm building it. You have a phone that you could use to receive calls and messages and save the game. You have an MP3 player that you can use to listen to music. You drive one of these bad boys. This is your car. Okay? A Suzuki Samurai. Kind of beat up and old, belonged to your uncle or something. You getting what I'm saying here? I don't know if you are familiar with games like My Summer Car or Monbazoo or to some extent Jalopy. These games that have like this environment and it's open and they're very car-centric. Mine won't be as car-centric, but you have a life. You have a life. That life has some external structure. You need to eat. You need to stay cool because it's a warm place. You need to take care of yourself. Maybe some other people too. You need ways to make money. But other than that, go out, have fun. Go out, just explore. They're all the way over here on this part of the island. You see this? This is a big ass supermarket right now. In the year 2026, that's where we are. In the year 2026, this is a big supermarket. When I lived there in 2005, it was a big mini golf course. What if I were able to get detailed, accurate information on the layout of this awesome 18-hole mini golf course and recreated it, and you could play that. You could just drive all the way from your little house over here, and then in the evening, the mini golf course opens up and you can go in there. It also had an awesome arcade. I don't know if I'll ever be able to recreate that because that's a whole lot of work. But this is kind of what I have in my mind. I have already... Oh, I closed the folder. I have already started drawing out a map. Where is... Here, bitmap sketch. I have scaled down the island by a factor of 3. Although some areas will be recreated 1-to-1. And I've already laid out kind of a network of roads that will be accessible to the player and potential places of interest to visit. And, that's the game. Is just hang out on Aruba in 2005 and meet interesting people, learn about the history. I've recently come up with the pitch of like explore the glorious majesty of its nature while also experiencing the kind of the mundane reality of living there. And yeah, you're familiar with My Summer Car. You know what My Summer Car has done for rural Finland. Kind of what I am attempting to do for Aruba, although I believe the scale of this is much larger because this would be... The real island is about 30 kilometers long. This would be about 10 kilometers long and 3 kilometers across, which would make it like scale-wise, like area-wise, I think about the size of San Andreas in GTA San Andreas. But of course, not everything will be accessible. Not all roads will be accessible. Like this whole built-up area, just like the capital city area, you'll never go there. But if you're standing on top of this hill, which you've climbed an arduous 600 steep steps, you're standing on top of this hill. Let's get the higher resolution picture from current day. You should be able to see all of it, you should be able to see the airport and airplanes landing and taking off. You should be able to see kind of the over here. This is where all the high-rise hotels are. These are all the tallest buildings on the island. Again, there's no 3D view here, but you should be able to see them peeking out, on the edge of the horizon there. that is what I am trying to build. And doing that from scratch, when you're doing it on your own and you don't really have, you have a little bit of experience, but you don't really have programming skills or graphic skills or design skills, it's a slow process. So what I'm working on still is what I want to get done before the year is over. What I want to get done, as I'm doing this at max two morning streams per week, is have this environment, so this road and these hills and this little, I would call it a town, a settlement, have that roughly sketched out in terrain and layout, just gray box it, while having a character controller that does what I needed to do and being able to enter and exit a vehicle. And what I have so far, it's amazing. Look, you can walk around a quickly made terrain environment, and you can turn a light switch on and off, and there's a door you can open. Whoa! I'm still working on how to sit. This is my first game. I've made tiny little games. I've done game jam stuff. This is like me leaping from making, a simple platformer for the Game Boy or something into a huge big dream project. I'm getting older. I'm gonna do the dream. I don't have time to build towards this. I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna see if I can make it work. That's the idea. And I have a very long-term, multi-year plan about how to work towards this. And we'll see. We'll see. Right now, I'm still kind of trying to work out how the interaction system works, and problem is, every time I have to take a little break, like last week, I couldn't work on this. Every time I have to take a little break, I have to come back in here and go over everything again and try to remember how everything I made works. It's difficult. So, my current interaction system, not as it exists in game, but as it exists only in this chart, is you have an interact button. Right, you have an interact button, a click or E, whatever. And if you use it on a fixture or piece of furniture or whatever, it just does interact. Right, you use it on a light switch, it switches the light. That's all there is to it. It does whatever that interactable item needs to do. Assuming that item is properly interactable. Like, there's a question still about locked doors. Maybe the item will communicate to the player, it'll send a signal of hey, this door is locked, and then you bring up the key ring, and if you have the key, then you can use the key. That's a whole other thing. The other thing is loose items, bottles of water, things you can pick up. All right, if you click on that, then it picks up the item. And then you have 5 possible interactions. One is use the item on a fixture, potentially. I'm still trying to think of examples. I know I'll need this somewhere, but I'm trying to think of a basic example that I could code up as a proof of concept. It's like put a thing in a thing. It's not put a key in a lock, because I'm already doing that a different way. But it's put a thing in a thing. Put a can in a crate or something. It's a kind of fixture that looks at what you're holding and says, yes, this is usable on me. I had an example of like put something in a trash can, but I don't think that needs that system, because that could just be, well, that might need that system, but yeah. Put a can in a trash can, like, yeah. But see, that's the thing. In Half-Life 2, that's done with physics, right? You drop or throw the can, and then it just falls. And if you want that trash to be disposed of, I can just say like, okay, well, it's falling into a hitbox that deletes it. But that's the other thing. I've been wondering how to place items, because in Half-Life 2 is a great example. In Half-Life, you pick up a thing and it's floating in front of you in the middle. And I want the world to feel very immersive. Every item is going to be held in your hand. You're going to see a hand holding it. It might not look good, but you'll have a hand holding it. So what if I want you to be able to place something somewhere? Like if you're working in a souvenir shop, maybe one of the kind of working tasks is stacking shelves and having them look nice, right? So you have a little souvenir, whatever, a cube, and you need to stack like 8 of them next to each other. Then I can't just have the hand, because then I'll have to have this weird Jurassic Park trespasser type situation where your hand is like this weird, awkward kind of physics thing. I don't want that. So I thought, okay, well then you have the thing in your hand, and then you'll have a copy of it floating in front of you that you can manipulate and move and place and then drop. Or does the copy project onto the nearest surface? And so if you have a shelf, it just kind of is already there, and if you let go, then it'll be placed. If I do that system, then maybe the trash can system will still be necessary, because then it's just like, if I use the item on a fixture, then it's like the action will be place can in trash can, right? It won't be physics. It'll be like a teleport. It'll be the item disappears from your hand. Your hand maybe does a little animation or throws or something, and then the item teleports to the trash can and then disappears, and there's a sound, a little, to communicate to you. You just throw. It's not you have placed can in trash can. It is you have thrown away this trash can. That's the verb. That's the message the player gets. So that's something I'm still trying to figure out how it works. The dropping is simple. Dropping an item is simple. Well, I don't know now, because now I'm completely. The other thing is use an item. So use an item is flashlight. You pick up a flashlight. Flashlight is not an inventory item. Flashlight is like an item you can grab and drop on the ground. If you hit the use key, it turns it on, turns it off. That's pretty simple. And then I have like an intricate inventory system that involves putting stuff under your arm so you can carry multiple things at the same time. That also just needs one key. It's the place and drop. Okay, so this is what I have written down, and that I might completely change. Pressing the drop key destroys the held item and recreates it as a world item in the same location, which is then subject to physics. Holding the drop key creates a holographic duplicate in the middle of the screen with no physics, but maybe collision, that is manipulable. By manipulable, I mean you could potentially rotate it separately from moving your own perspective. Once ready to place, destroy the held item, destroy the holographic duplicate, and recreate it as a world item with the same transform, which is then subject to physics. Holographic duplicate only appears during place mode. Tasteful, non-distraction, but obviously a temporary duplicate, only a visual duplicate, no physics, might have collision for placement. I think we can do both. Because the way some games do it is... Say you have a surface in front of you. You have the bed of a pickup truck. It's the bed of a pickup truck. And you're holding this. So some games will have it just hover in the middle, and then you can kind of put it there yourself, right? Or you can hold it right above and then drop it, and then it'll sit on the bed of the pickup. And some games have it, if you're close enough, then it's projected onto the surface. And if not, then it hovers in the air. I think that's what I'll want to do. Yeah. No physics, but collision. But collision for placement. If in a certain distance from if close to a surface, stick to surface. Else hover in middle of screen. I think that works. I don't know if there's more honcho videos that could honcho game. Yeah. Okay, so here it's always projecting. It's projecting because this is an interesting shot actually. The reticle is here, and yet the hologram is there. So it's projecting to the nearest placeable spot. I don't know if I need to go that far. And then here, it projects quite far. Like, I want to have a limit to the reach. And then she'll just have a drink, right? Yeah. This is building the engine, it's different. Show update. What's your latest? There's a 0.4 update. This isn't much of a trailer. Vignettes. Almost thought she was going to use it on the... Oh, she can. Ugh. You won't be able to get drunk in my game. Yeah, look, this is a good example. Huge item. You can lay it flat. Actually, using a liquid of some kind on an engine is a good example too of a use item on fixture type situation. Which was in our to-do example. Fill up something with water from bottle. Say you have a pet cat. You know, how do you fill its this is funny. This is actually the opposite. How do you fill its water? You go to a sink. So you would use his bowl on the sink or faucet. Fill it with water, and then you can place it again. See, an interaction is interesting here because it has, whenever an item is interactable, it has like a highlight, not a highlight, an outline, plus UI stuff pops up. I think what I want to do is just have an icon in the reticle. The icon would be appropriate for whatever kind of interaction. Like I want to communicate to the player some stuff, but some of it needs to be... Some of it just needs to be... I kind of have this philosophy that the player needs to have needs to learn on their own how things work. Okay, I think I get it now. And there's two kinds of place mode. There's two kinds of place mode. One is free form, place wherever, and two is specific location. And maybe some items can be both. some. Like I was thinking about the no, all items can be both. Specific location that unlocks particular use, i.e. the car jack. I was thinking specifically about the car jack, right? The Suzuki Samurai. So the car, just kind of to get it out there, the car is not like My Summer Car where you need to build it yourself, but it is a thing that you own, that I want you to build a certain relationship with, and I want you to have a certain fear of damaging. And so, damaging it will cost you, right? And it's starting out, it's not going to be a particularly great car. It's not going to be a super clunker, but it's going to be, you know, an old 15-year-old, maybe 20-year-old Suzuki Samurai. It's seen its fair share of abuse. So find your words. So there will be certain levels of maintenance that either you can do yourself or will need to go to a garage to. So there will be cosmetic damage, there can be engine damage, your battery can run out, your tires can go flat. Maybe the windshield can break, that kind of stuff. Most of that you can't fix yourself. You'll have to either be towed or go to a garage to fix. Tires, you can at least put on a spare. And to do that, you need a jack. Now, the Suzuki Samurai, very handily, has a jack that comes with it that's like stored under the hood. So you grab that, you take that, right? You click on it, it's in your hand now. And, you know, this depends on how I do the physics, whatever. But, like, I'm imagining in my head, the jack can only be placed in 4 specific places. Maybe 6, maybe front and back as well, to kind of raise, but it can only be placed like right behind, like if you need to change the front left tire, you place it behind the front left tire, right? And to put it there, you can't freeform place it. You basically place it there and it deploys in a specific location, and then you can use it to jack it up, change the tire, bring it back down, grab it again. Right, so that's an item that can be placed and used, but only really used when properly placed. Because you can drop it, you can place it, but then it won't be deployable. That's a deployable item. I think I get it. I think it works. I think this all works. We can keep our drop and place system. See, but that's the thing, is... No, then we don't need place modes for that. Because that is use item on fixture contextual. That's redundant. Checkmark or highlight. Used for deployable. Used for interactable fixtures or deployable items, i.e. car jack. Okay. After this, I'm gonna go look in the code because I have. Well, hold on. Let's go look at the to-do list. Design, place, item mode. How to rotate. That's something we still need to do. How to rotate. Rotation. Rotate. Item rotation. if in... I don't know which keys yet. But at least 2 to rotate the item along the... which axis would that be? Photo axes. Along, this is X, right? No, this is Z axis. Yeah, Z and or no. Y we don't need to. Z/X axis. In like 90-degree increments. Yeah. So that is done in the to-do. Design place item mode is done. This is not true. So I think I'm gonna go take a quick bathroom break, but when I come back, I'm gonna go look through the code and do some cleanup. All right. So next up on the list is I have these components that still have hand interaction. Where are they? Or component, interaction component. I guess they're not called that in the actual script anymore. It's just in the scene tree that they're called that. I don't see any hand. Because this is just interaction component now, right? Yeah, last name interaction component. So I could just rename this. Excuse me. What's going on there? Interaction component thing. Where are you? The seat has its own thing. This is the house. This is the door. This is the other door. This is the button. That one button. This is a thing. Where's the other? There's the other button. And it's still called hand interaction component for some reason. Weird. Now we have no more hands. We are out of hands. And everything still works as it should. including the physics door being completely, absolutely messed up. Weird. Okay. What was our, there we go. That's F7. And nope. Body. Nope. Okay, that's all cleared up. Okay. Let's just watch some YouTube.
Hey everyone, welcome to another FPS tutorial in the Gato engine. Today is the beginning of our interaction setup, and when I say interactions, I mean things that the player can interact with. That would be maybe a door or a pickup like health or ammo. As always, the source files for the project are available on my Patreon, so you can grab those there. Otherwise, let's get started. Our goal for this video is to set up a raycast for the center of our camera that's going to tell us what it hits out in the world.
We have that, right? In our player character, we have interact cast is what it was called. Yeah. I may have already heavily customized
If you
this.
don't know what a raycast is, it's just a line in 3D space. It has a beginning point and an end point, and through code, we can check along that vector to see if we hit anything within the collision layer that we set. Our first step is to step into our FPS controller script. That's where we're housing our camera. And because we're going to be interacting in pretty much every state that we have, we're going to put this in our main controller script. And we need to start with two different variables. One's going to be an export variable, and this variable will be our interact distance. This will be the distance that the raycast can go, and therefore the max distance that we can interact with anything. And then we need an empty variable that's going to hold the result of that raycast. But down at the bottom, we're going to add two functions to our script. The first is going to be an interact function, and we're going to run this whenever we press our interact button, which we're going to add in a second. For now, we'll just add our pass to that, and then another function that is going to be run on every frame that is going to cast our ray. Now you can set up a raycast node up here in your scene. That works too. I like to do it in code because I know where it's at. You can control it within the script, and then you can also adjust a little bit more easily where it's coming from and where it's going to end up. Now we've done this before when we did our weapon, our shooting. So I'll walk through that process of creating that raycast again in script. To get started, you need a reference to the camera because that's where we're going to be starting our raycast and casting from. You need to get the space state. So we set a variable for that space state and set it to our camera, get world 3D. So get the 3D world that camera is a part of, and then direct space state. Next, we need to get the center of our screen. We can do that by getting the size of our viewport. In fact, let me draw this out real quick. You can do that by getting the size of our viewport. Say that is our viewport right there. And let's say our width is 100 and our height is 50. And we want that spot right in the middle. Well, all we need to do is divide that by 2, divide this by 2, and that's going to give us right in the middle our center spot. So we get the viewport with our get viewport function. We get the size property of that viewport, and then we divide that by 2. That's our screen center. Then we need the origin point of our raycast. We get another variable. We get a reference to our camera. We project ray origin, and we do that from the screen center, from the center of our screen. And we're doing the screen center because that's where our reticle is. That's where essentially the mouse is for the player. Now that we have our origin point, we need the endpoint of that ray. So we set another variable called end, and we equal that to origin, plus we're going to get the normal from our camera, and we're going to add our interact distance to it. So to do that, we do our camera, project ray normal from our screen center, and then we multiply that by our interact distance. Now, if you're thinking about our beginning point and our end point, we need to get a vector, right? And that's what that normal is. So if our camera is going out like that, we get our normal to that point. So wherever we're looking with our camera, that's going to be where that raycast ends. With our origin and endpoint, we have the information that we need to actually do our query, our raycast. To do that, we set another variable. We call it query, and we use the physics ray query parameters 3D. We're going to create one of those, and it needs a from point and a to point, and our from is our origin, and our to point is our end. We also want to make sure that within our query, within our raycast, that we're going to make bodies collidable, and we do that by setting collide with bodies to true. Our raycast is now set up, and whenever we do our raycast, we're going to get a result, and we need to get that result and put it into another variable. There's definitely a lot of variables involved, and honestly, what I would do probably in an end goal is take this whole thing and create a function within a global script so you can just call it whenever you want, not have to write this out all the time. But that's beyond what we're doing today. So we get our results, and to do that, we space states, get our space state, and intersect ray with our query. And our result variable now holds all of the information that we need. And specifically, if you go into this intersect ray, and you can click on this if you control and left click, you can see within our intersect ray, we're going to get a lot of information, including the colliding object, the ID of that object, the normal of the surface that we're hitting at the intersection point, the face index of the intersection point, and the shape index of that colliding shape. So lots of information that we're going to be getting, and if it doesn't hit anything, it's just going to pass null. It's just nothing. We don't get anything back. We'll have to account for that in a little bit. Back in our script now, we have our results, and we're going to get the collider. We want to get the node, basically, that we're hitting. And so let's do that with another variable. And we're going to call
Hi,
this
bad cop.
cast results. And that's going to
Thanks for the follow, bad cop.
Collider. That's the extent of the function that we need to get some results. So let's go ahead and print our cast results.
I'm currently doing the thing I delayed too long to do, which is just gonna watch some tutorials.
And let's test this out. We need to also make sure that we're going to be running this every frame. So let's go up to our physics process and add our interact cast function.
This is stuff I have implemented already. It's just it's been a while, and I need to remind myself what is actually going on.
Let's run this, and when we do,
because I don't know what I'm doing.
Get some results down in our output. Now our raycast is happening from the center of our screen, and we're currently getting a bunch of null values down in our output. Remember, we set our interact distance to 2. That means in 2 meters. That's as far as we're going with our raycast. So we get a little bit closer to some objects. We're going to start getting some results. You can see our raycast is finding and hitting our static body 3D nodes over here. Also remember that you need a collision object for the raycast to do anything. And it also has to be in the layer that you're checking for. And this information is going to be exactly what we need when we continue our interaction setup in other videos. We just need to know what we're hitting and to be able to control the distance that we are able to hit those objects. So the fact that I can...
The not knowing what you're doing is the first step in learning to do what you learn to do how to doing.
Get static
language is one of those things, maybe.
Perfect. Now that we're getting a result from our raycast, the other part of the puzzle is whenever we interact, whenever we press, say, the E key, we want to take whatever we're hitting and be able to interact with it. So just for our setup, we're going to create an input map for an interact key, and we're going to print out what we're currently looking at, if anything. So we'll head up to our project settings, and input map, and then we're going to add an action called interact. And for this one, in fact, let me resize this a little bit. For this button, let's just do the E key for our interact button. Now to add our interaction, let's go up to this function right here. So this is the input function, and it's an existing function that it's always there, and we're overriding it within our script. We're adding to it. And what?
Oh, I just had an idea. Remembery. Need pitches for different audience, i.e. gamers will understand some of the lingo, whereas potential funders will need to be spoken to differently.
What this does is it fires whenever there's an input event. Now that's more complicated in terms of when certain ones fire. For example, I've got an unhandled input up there and an input. There's a sequence where these are set up, and I won't get all into that, maybe in a future tutorial video. But for now, just know that this is all going to fire whenever there's any input event at all. We're already using this to exit from the window, right? So let's add another one. So if the event is the action pressed, interact, we're going to run our interact function right there. In our interact function, we're going to take whatever that current cast result is, check if it exists first, and if it does, we'll just print it out. Okay. In the future, what we can do is access that node, that script, whatever that might be. Maybe it's a door or a pickup item, and we can run some code from there. For now, we're just going to print. And remember, we did create a variable up here to hold that information, and that's the interact cast result. So I guess the first thing we need to do, we don't need to print that. So the first thing we really need to do is get the interact cast result and set it to the current cast result. Now that variable, that information is accessible from anywhere in our script, and we'll check in our interact function if cast result is not null, and if it is not null, we'll print
it. What do I have in there right now? Oops, don't open VS Code, please. Interact. All right. If interact cast result and interact has user signal interacted, emit signal. Right. This is for sitting. Yeah.
we press the E key. So let's test that out. head over to our boxes, and we took off our constant printing.
Hey,
So
Bum.
looking at the box, when I press E, it should print, and there it is.
Thank you so
Go for
much.
Any object that has a collider.
36 is a nice
Now,
round number.
in the
I
next
like
video,
it.
We're going to take a look at how to
I hope you're doing well.
other objects in the scene, right? Because currently we can interact with the walls and the floor, and we don't want that. We want to be able to interact with the objects that we want, not everything. So what we'll do in the next video is set up what is called a component. We're going to add an interaction component that we can add to any object in our scenes and make them
Lurking and working. Yeah, me too.
Hey everyone, welcome to another FPS tutorial in the Gato engine. Today we're going to build upon the interaction setup that we did in the last episode. We're going to create an interaction component. That component is going to be something that we can add to any object in our scene and make it interactable. As always, everything in the project as you see it, the source files, is available on my Patreon for my patrons. You can check that out with a link in the description. Otherwise, let's get going. If you didn't see the last video about the interaction setup, I'll put a link to that also in the description. Otherwise, let's jump into our FPS controller just to refresh where we're at. We're currently doing a raycast from the center of our camera out into the 3D world, and we're getting a result from...
Sorry, I'm playing at 2x speed because I wanna.
Anything that we collide with. We also have an interact distance that we can adjust, and whenever we press the interact button, we are checking if we are colliding.
Time is money.
And we're doing something if we are. What we're going to be doing is taking this print logic, this do something logic, and we're going to put it into a component. Now, when I say component, what I mean is something that we can add easily to any objects, any box or door or physics object, whatever you have, and it's going to make it interactable. And I say component because we're going to reduce the dependencies. I'm learning as I progress through this tutorial series that having things to be a little bit more modular, and doing that through a component system can help with that. It's going to make it a lot easier for someone to, say, take this interaction setup and plug it into their own project. If I have a lot of dependencies within my controller or weapon system and everything else, these tutorials are a little bit less helpful. So going forward, and even maybe we might go back and change some things and fix some things, we're going to try to make things as modular as possible. So to do the component, the first thing that we need to do is create a new script. So go down into our scripts folder, and we're going to create a new script, and we're going to call this script interaction components. Now this script is going to take a new class, and that's going to allow us to select this when we add a new node. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll call this interaction component, and it's going to extend just a basic node because we don't really need any 3D elements to this. We'll set that as a class name, and already if we go into our create new node and we type in interaction, we already have it showing up. So let's go ahead and go to our level, and let's find one of our boxes over here. And actually the order of this is not right, so let me adjust that. I'm looking at this static body 3D node that we have, and we're calling this interactable box. The idea behind this component is that we can go to nodes, to objects that we have set up, and simply add this interaction component to them. And that's it. We just want to add the component, and that's going to handle everything else that we need in terms of making it interactable. Now, of course, right now it's not actually doing anything. So we'll go back to our interaction component. Now, how this is going to work is whenever we're doing our raycast, we're actually getting this object right here. We're getting our static body 3D node, right? However, we're not attaching any scripts to this node, and nor do we want to because everything is being handled through our component. So we need a way for interactions with this node to communicate with our component. The trick is that we want to control all of these signals from the input component.
Let me just have a quick look. Context is all we get. So the interaction component takes a parent. Right. So the direct parent. That's single focus, unfocused, interacted. Right, that's all it does.
Component. And we're going to do that through the use of some variables and some signal logic. So the first thing we need is a variable to hold the parent of our component. That's going to be the reference to the object that is being detected by the raycast. Then in our ready function, we want parent to equal get parent. Now this means that we do have a sort of dependent logic here. The interaction component has to be an immediate child of whatever that parent object is, right? Now that we have our parent, we need to make a connection to this parent through the component. So we're going to create a new function called connect parent. And within this function, we're going to add signals to our parent from the input component. Now, part of me does not like this logic that we're affecting another node through this node, but keep in mind, even without a script, there are already built-in signals. We're just going to be adding signals to that. There are a few ways you can add signals. You're probably used to the traditional upper right node tab, add a signal kind of thing. You can also create a signal in a script and do it that way. Another way you can do that is purely through code. So we're going to get a reference to our parent, and we're going to use the function add user signal. And then we can name that signal. And we're going to be adding a few signals here. We're going to add a focused signal, which is when we are essentially hovering over an interactable object. We're going to be adding an unfocused signal, which is going to be when we unhover. Is that the word, actually? Unhover. When we're unfocusing from that object. And then we're going to add a third and final signal for when we are interacting with that object. So we've created these signals. Think that you've created a script at this point, but we're not. And we've created these signals within the parent object. Now we need to connect these signals.
I can tell my brain is already like working through this now. Like I have this implemented in code right now myself because I've done this tutorial before. But now that I have so much more of how I want the interaction system to work kind of sketched out, I can tell my brain is trying to figure out how to squeeze the rest of that in there. It doesn't know yet, but just having it think about it a little bit is a good place to be.
To functions within our input component. We don't actually have any functions yet, so let's go ahead and create those first. So for our focus function, we're going to do I'm going to call it in range. You could do it, focus or however you want to call it. this is going to be when we are detecting something with our raycast. And you could, have something pop up on the UI. You could have it be highlighted. I will probably do that in the next video. This is just going to run whenever we are detecting something with our raycast, and therefore affect the object that we are detecting. For now, we're just going to take our parent, and we'll print that in our output, just as a proof of concept.
Hi,
Then
nervous.
for our unfocused, we need another function, and this is going to be obviously not.
How are you today?
Away from an object. And we will, I guess in this case, just print nothing. So we'll just pass at this point. We can do stuff with this in the future. And then finally, a function for when we interact. And again, we'll probably we'll just get the parents. But let's print the name, so it's different than our in range. I know these prints are kind of boring, but it's easy to test things with a.
Yeah, meeting in 30 minutes. I'm so sorry. We have on focus, on unfocus, on interact. I think my doors also have this same component, right? Yeah. So we have an interaction component, and then on top of that, we add a specific thing. The door is its own component. Excuse me. Ugh.
The prints, and you don't have to do a bunch of other code that, maybe that code doesn't work. And you need to know that it works up to a point, and you can proceed. So we have our functions. The next thing that we need to do is take these signals that we've created and connect them to these functions. So we'll go back to our connect parent function, and we'll do the same 3 signals that we created. Now to connect, we'll go to parents. We'll use the connect function. We'll get a reference to our parent because, again, we're working within the parent. The parent has the signals, and we'll use the function connect. Then we pick which signal we want to connect, and then we're going to specify the callable using this syntax. So we get callable, and then we get the object that callable is in this case, self, because we're doing it from the input component. And then we can get the, let's see, what we're doing is focus. So in range, that's the function, that's the callable that we want.
Like, partly now I want to think about, like, what's every conceivable type of interactive item I could have. But the whole point of having this kind of modular system is like I can just think of anything and immediately add this component to it and have a basic interactive thing going on. So I don't need to think about that. Because the light component, the door component is its own thing. The switch component is whatever. The switch component specifically takes in a light and turns it on and off when it hears the signal interacted. Yeah.
To run. Now that we've done this, we can emit the signal from our parent, and it will run the function that's in our input component. Let's go ahead and fill out our last 2 connections here. We've got unfocused, which will be
yes.
At the same time. Connecting, you can use the function get signal connection list, and then you can check a specific signal and see where that connection is at. Our connect parent function is ready to go. We need to make sure we actually run that function, otherwise it's not going to do anything. And also make sure that you're running it after we set our parent, because we're using that variable. All right, so we have our signals set up. Now we can go back to our FPS controller scripts, or wherever you have your interaction raycast logic. This is where we're going to be checking if we have these signals, and then we're going to emit those signals. Now I say checking for the signals because we need to know if the thing that we're looking at is actually interactable. And we can do that simply by checking if it has a signal that we want. And I think the quickest way to proof of concept this is actually, let's go to our interaction function here. So this runs whenever we press the interact button. Currently we're checking if we are detecting anything with our raycast, and then we're just printing whatever that is. So let's delete that. And let's still check if it's null, because we don't want to run if it's null. And let's also check if the...
I think I'm there. The interaction component gets the parent, which has a whatchamacallit, a hitbox. Not a hitbox, a collision, a collider. Right? Because this is a CSG box 3 that comes with a built-in collider, I'm pretty sure. So the interaction component has a string. That's the context, right? It has a parent. It gets the parent, and it connects the parent. And by that, it adds and connects a bunch of signals. And then it uses the message bus, which is this script, to fire interaction, focus, and unfocus. So those are just for those are just emitted then. And then the player has the interact cast. So it casts an interact. And it takes the collider. The cast result is collider. And then if interact cast result and interact cast result has your signal interacted, emit interacted. So interacted is emitted. The switch component, meanwhile, takes in the light, gets the parent, which is the button, connects to the parent, and if it hears interacted being fired on the parent, it does do switch. And the door component works pretty much the same way, except it does a whole lot of shit, right? Connect parent, check door, open door, close door, right? Still a little like, I don't know what I'm doing.
In this episode of my Gato FPS tutorial series, we're simplifying our interaction raycast setup into a separate interaction raycast component to improve on our code. These tutorials are part of a long series of FPS tutorials for the Gato engine. The link to the interaction component episode is in the description, and as always, you can grab the source files for this and all my Gato tutorials on my Patreon. But in the interaction component episode, we use a raycast from our player to detect when we are looking at an interactable object. The code worked fine, but was housed in our controller script and not very accessible. The goal in this episode is to separate out the raycast interaction code so it's in its own node and script, and therefore easier to access for other functionality. In my FPS controller script, I'm looking for my camera 3D node. We want the raycast to go out from the center of the camera, so we add a raycast 3D node as a child of our camera 3D node, so that it inherits the camera transform.
So right now we are... Everything is in the interact cast. So you're saying...
Interaction component episode, we used a raycast from our player to detect when we are looking at an interactable object. The code worked fine, but was housed in our controller script and not very accessible. The goal in this episode is to separate out the raycast interaction code so it's in its own node and script, and therefore easier to access for other functionality. In my FPS controller script, I'm looking for my camera 3D node. We want the
camera 3D, yeah, that's the goal. Add a child node, which would be what? A raycast 3D. Create. And where are you? Yeah. You're pointing down. You need to point X. No. Oh wait, how long? What is the size of the raycast that I have now? And interact distance. Interact distance is 1.
raycast to go out from the center of the camera, so we add a raycast 3D node as a child of our camera 3D node, so that it inherits the camera transform. In the Gato engine, our forward Z is actually negative. So I've set the target position in the raycast node to -2 meters. You can adjust this if you want to check for collisions that are closer or further away. As a child, you'll notice the raycast node always points in the same direction as the camera view. Next, we need a new script on our raycast 3D node that will hold our existing interaction code.
Rename you to interaction raycast.
In this script, we move our interaction logic from our FPS controller. We first move our interaction.
Well, we first take interact cast. And we comment it out.
Cast.
And then we do that thing where we just copy paste shit. Extends raycast 3D var interact cast result var current cast result input event. Input event. Do I do this at all? No. Or do I do interact? Interact cast. The interact cast is always running. Yeah, why would the interact cast not always be running? Why do I have something in my throat? I just had a handful of cashews.
Result and current cast result variables. Our input event function that holds our interact input command, then the interact cast cast and interact functions. All of these can be removed from the FPS controller after you've moved them to our new script. We do have one change to make on the interact cast function. Before, we were manually using the physics server to create a ray query. All of that code can now be done automatically with our raycast 3D node and the line current cast result equal get collider. Then we still emit our focused and unfocused signals for our interactions. This whole episode might not feel like a big change or
Yeah, I've been muted this whole damn time. I've been talking since I coughed. It's okay, I've said nothing of importance. Don't worry, I'm just copying stuff over from a tutorial. And not understanding what's going on. Which is still better than vibe coding. All your meetings got cancelled. We love to hear it. Current cast result, get collider. You were the one who cancelled them. You're getting so powerful, SK. Don't let it get to your head. You can go. Interact cast results. You can go. Handle, input. I mean specifically, but in general, there's a wave of layouts coming, so you're half-assing it. Are you at risk of the way? Oh, you're so powerful, that's why they're trying to fire you. Gotcha, I didn't read that. Hey, Fluff Weasel. Well, by all means, half-ass. You got your at-risk letter. Fun! I hope you're not at risk, Fluff. Pause. Use item. Handle state. Enter normal state. Crouch state. Run state. Initialize animations. Jump animation. Crouch animation. This is debug stuff. Unhandled input. This is reticle. A lot of people choose to voluntarily leave. Fun. Fun. Handle pausing. Okay, this is the interact cast. This is interact. So why you're too deeply embedded in the orc to fire? Well done. If there's a third wave of redundancies, you'll take the voluntary exit. You take what you can get. So why are you not working? The signal interaction focused. It's a headache, Fluff. Also not in a great mood today, so I delayed trying to get into the code as much as possible, and partly regret it. Current cast result is get collider. Returns the first object that the ray intersects, or null if the object is intersecting. It's enabled. Do you need to be longer? What if I set you to 2 meters? I don't think that's it. No, because you're as close as you can get. Interact cast. So where interact cast is never used. That is what's going on. And here I put interact cast where? In physics process. Sometimes, just sometimes, you have to be smarter than the tutorial. Cast. Yeah, baby! It's the exact same thing as before, except now it's its own separate thing. That's cool, but that means I can make certain things smaller. Right, this is the raycast. I need to go to the player. This music is so sonic. I wonder if it's the same composer. This is classic Outrun. Who composed Magical Sound Shower? Who composed Magical Sound Shower? Hiroshi Kawaguchi. Works for Sega. Has done Load Runner, Hang On, Space Harrier, Fantasy Zone, Outrun, Afterburner, Rent a Hero, Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, but not Sonic. Sega Rally 2006. Outrun 2, sound production on Yakuza 3, arrangements on Bayonetta, but I don't see Sonic in here. Although it did say song was originally composed by Hiroshi Kawaguchi and was written and arranged by but that's the Hatsune Miku shit. That's the Project Diva shit. No, it's just a Sega vibe, I guess. Okay, I need to clean up the character. Interact distance can go. This might move to. I don't know where that might move to. That can go. Because I can always just access the camera. Copy node path. You can also always just go ahead. Camera interaction raycast, right? Head. We'll figure that out. I'm not gonna go very much longer. Mrs. Bob is homesick. She'll probably want to have an early lunch to get a little bit of energy for the afternoon. I will be back tonight with a video game this evening. This night, whatever time zone you're in. And I'll probably be back on Thursday. More of this shit. There we go. You can go. All of you can go. All the notes are in the new thing. Let's just make sure there's nothing else going on here. I just scratched a little spot on my skull that was not the right part to scratch. Alright, so that works. Everything works. So I've done nothing. Let me just watch this one last video about how to pick up shit.
In this episode of my Gato FPS tutorial series, we're making a pickup component script that will let the player physically pick up objects. These tutorials are part of a long series of FPS tutorials for the Gato engine. And as always, you can grab the source files for this and all of my Gato engine tutorials on my Patreon. Our goal for the component will allow the player to pick up the parent object, in this case, any rigid body 3D object. To do that, we're going to check when the player interacts with the object, emit a signal from our interaction component that will be read by the pickup.
I'm not gonna have this work like this in the game. Because it won't be physics objects. Or at least there won't be physics objects when they're picked up. But there might be some good tips in there.
Which will adjust the transform of our object.
Because there's no, I don't think there's a tutorial for exactly how I want to do it. So I'm going to be spending the rest of September figuring that shit out.
When the player presses the interact button while looking at an interactable object, the interaction raycast script fires a signal which is read by the interaction component.
Yes.
In our interaction component script, we're going to add a new signal that will fire in the onInteract function and pass along the parent rigid body 3D node. We then need a new node called pickupComponent added as a child of our interaction component along with a new script. Being a child here is important in how we'll structure our code, so wouldn't it be cool if we could check if that's true and send a warning if it isn't? Well, we can by overriding the built-in get configuration warnings function. This is basically what creates that little warning logo when you don't have a collision node sometimes in the scene tree. We add the function which will return a packed string array. At the top of our script, I've added my class name and variables to hold the parent node and object we are a child of. Remember, the parent is the interaction component, but the object is the rigid body 3D node. In our ready script, we set parent to get parent, which should be the interaction component class node. If it is, we connect the parent interacted signal we just created to a function we'll make in a minute called update state. In the get configuration warnings function, we check if the parent is not an interaction component class. If it's not, then we return our warning string array, and if it is, then we return
This is important, but I don't care.
It needs to be manually updated, and we can do that by using another built-in function, notification. This function captures a bunch of different notification events that occur in the editor. In it, we check if our what equals notification enter tree, or whenever we add or move our pickup component. When this happens, we reset our parent to the new parent and update our warning with the update configuration warnings function. Now, whenever we add or move our node, the parent will get checked and a warning placed if needed. We also need to add the tool keyword at the top of the script so that this runs while we are in the editor. Now that we have a check for our node placement, let's start picking up our object. We create a new export variable, pickup distance, to adjust how far we want the object to be in front of us when we pick it up. A picked up Boolean variable and a constant pickup lerp for lerping the object's location. I've set mine to 0.3. Then we create our update state function with a parameter for our interactable object. Remember, we are passing that value in our player interacted signal. Within that function, we set our object to interactable, set the rigid body 3D node to freeze mode so that gravity is not applied while holding it, and turn pickup to true. Then we have to make a decision about how to handle our collision. You can turn collision off completely or for specific collision channels. Basically, you don't want to collide with yourself or you're going to have some really weird effects, but you may want to collide with other objects and you'll need to collide with your raycast. Keep that in mind when setting your collision layers. We place that in an else statement and add an if statement for when we are already holding the object. Then we set picked up to false, object to null, and reset our collision masks and freeze setting. Finally, in our physics process function, we need to update the object's global transform when we have picked it up. We check if picked up, then I'm getting the global transform of my player camera and setting the global transform of the picked up object to an interpolate width value, going from A, my object global transform, to B, my camera transform, with a translated local distance. Now, when you add the pickup component as a child of the interaction component, you should be able to pick up that object when you interact with it. There's definitely more polish needed here, but this should give you an idea for one way to achieve the effect. You could also place the object as a child of the camera itself and remove it when you drop it, but I wanted to keep the object in its scene tree location. As always, you can get the source file.
So the way I want to do it is very different, but that might give me some tips on how to begin building it, because this is going to be a very complicated thing to build. Because what I want is items are loose items. You pick them up, they attach to your hand. There's a whole thing there. We might try to work that out tomorrow. So we did refresh the stay-at-home controllers. Yeah. I'll need to define what an item is, at least at the basic level. I think in the final piece, I want like an item that can be two-handed and you have different sizes and features and all that shit. But like, I just need an item, a kind of simple shape. You pick it up, it's in your hand. You can drop it, you can use it, whatever. I just need to make some examples and have them work. So the way I'm thinking about it now, as we wrap up, maybe a calmer music. The way I'm thinking about it now is I wanted to have the character controller basics done in August, and that didn't happen. I did lose a week last week, and I might lose weeks in the future. But before the year is over, and that really means before December, because I'm leaving to Aruba on December 7th, and I won't be back until the 27th, or the 28th. Before the year's over, I want to have the character controller working as it should, so I can just add shit to it. A basic usable vehicle, and I'm really talking about platform with wheels and a chair, and you can sit in it, and when you sit in it, you control the car, and then you can exit. That's like the super basics. And a rudimentary gray box version of the initial map worked out. So, considering that for at least 1 week in September, my mom will be here, and I won't be streaming then, I think it is reasonable to... I have 3 months to get this working by doing roughly 2 morning streams a week. Have the character controller done in September, have the vehicle stuff done before October is over, and have the map, that basic kind of gray box initial map and the scale and all that stuff done in November. And that means we enter 2027 with a version of the game that can reasonably function as a first prototype onto which I can then build like a more... I have it written down. Since we're talking about future plans, I have it written down in my great big notebook. I had this worked out. Where are you? I don't know if this still counts, but it was a decent plan. Ugh. How early was this? Okay, prototype 1. Basic character controller, movement and basic interaction, a test environment, a basic vehicle. Prototype 2, add inventory to character controller, very basic gray box of map 1, gray box vehicle. Okay, so what I'm thinking about is kind of a combination of those two. Then prototype 3, I have called the foundation. Basic implementation of all non-NPC or life sim related stuff. Character abilities, so movement, vehicle, entry and driving, interaction, inventory, pocket items, physics. Okay, so there's a little bit of prototype 3 in this too. A basic textured map, water where it needs to be, mostly height map, no scatter detail, building placement with gray boxes, other natural barriers, basic road system laid out, basic skybox and day and night cycle. That might be a little advanced. Model but untextured Suzuki Samurai, that's also a little advanced. So some of this will be next week. Oh my god, next year. Then prototype 4, I add the life sim stuff. I add NPCs, I add traffic, I add job management. I refine and add content to a playable alpha. And from that point on, once I have that going, I can really lay down the graphical style. I can have the fundamentals of the life, job, and NPC simulations. I won't have any real progression, but a snapshot of a day, you know. And I'll have basic environmental detail, buildings placed, but plenty of gray boxes, and UI development. Those alphas would be what I'd be working towards the summer of 2027, where I would like to have something I could potentially show off to people who might be willing to finance this. I could have a potential trailer, could be like, yeah, you know, gameplay is still very much basic, but this is what I'm building off. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like, right? And then we introduce progression, add content, add ramps for further content, get feedback, make stuff look much nicer, and refine the user interface and user experience. And then we're working towards a feature complete minimum viable product, maybe by the end of next year, beginning of 28, where it's like actually working towards having a fully featured, not demo, but like main game working. That actually sounds all kind of reasonable. Now that I'm thinking about it, we'll see. The hope is, of course, that if I can make more money with whatever I'm doing now, if the YouTube continues to succeed, I'm gonna, just a slight announcement, but I'm gonna announce the details of it next week, where I'm gonna have freelance services that I'm offering, whatever. Mrs. Bob wins the lottery, you know, that kind of shit. Then I can put more time in it per week. It seems not entirely unreasonable to have the minimum viable project version of the game out at some point in 2028, and it kind of feels fucked up saying that. Well, we'll see. Could also be that it takes much longer because this is game development. And that's it for me for this morning, my friends. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Thank you, Bummatron, for the resub. I will be back this evening with a little game called Dune. Until then, stay safe, stay hydrated, remember to breathe your oxygen. Today is the day.